When I read all the amazing donations that you've also made through the Hunter Foundation, whether it's Band-Aid or in partnership with Bill Clinton or Children in Need or Comic Relief, your legacy through philanthropy has been hallmarked into existence for over a decade now. And I reflect on you being in the Times, I think it's the Times Rich list that labeled you as the first homegrown billionaire. But you asked to be removed, I
I did.
believe. Why? Why was that? Was it something to do
Because
with your values in philanthropy?
um, so I wanted to be removed. I didn't want to be on a list for how rich I was. That's crass, in my opinion. I wanted to be on a list about how you've used your wealth for the common good. And because my wife and I had made a decision, and we are signatories of the Giving Pledge, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett in America, so they encourage successful people to say, during your lifetime, you're going to give away at least half. I mean, we're going to give away more than that of your wealth. And therefore, I said, look, I shouldn't be on this list for my wealth. If you want to put me on the list for giving it away, then great. So that was it.
That's truly inspirational. I'm sure the listeners, when they close their eyes and think of, I don't know, a billionaire, they think of some sort of malevolent figure. But you have redefined that completely through what you do and the values that you have, and those statements such as not being the richest in the graveyard. I really look at you with inspiration, Tom.
And
I really mean that.
I'm eating mash and beans as well, David.
I'll be having that too in about 15 minutes. So you've, through your philanthropy and through the Hunter Foundation and some of the amazing initiatives that you've ran over the last decade, you've partnered with some amazing individuals such as Bill Clinton, Obama, George Clooney, Leonardo DiCaprio. Out of these amazing celebrity guests that you're friends with, is there a particular one that stands out that aligns with your values or is just truly doing something incredible in this space?
I think the most amazing time I had was I went with President Bill Clinton to Africa. I'd never been to Africa before, and he invited me to go on a whistle stop tour of Africa with him. The G8 was coming to Gleneagles, and Africa was high up, Gordon Brown's agenda, Tony Blair's agenda. And he said, would you like to come? And I said, well, of course, I'd love to come. And I had the privilege of visiting 7 countries in 6 days with him. And I would just be a fly in the wall, listening and learning. And before we were in a private plane, and before we would land, say it was Maputo in Mozambique, his chief of staff would come to him and say, Mr. President, we're going to meet the president here. His name is this. His wife's name's this. He's got 3 daughters. One's at Brown, one's at NYU, one's at Stanford. And here's the key things we want to get across. Do you want me to go over that again? And Bill Clinton would say, no, we would land. The motorcade would go. I would just tuck in behind. He would then meet the president. Mr. President, how are you? Now, how's your wife? And his ability to make that person feel he was the most important person he was speaking to was just amazing. And he actually did it to me. And even though I knew what he was doing, I was still impressed. He came and visited here in Ayrshire, our home in Ayrshire. And the minute he walked in, he said, Tom, where's your dad? Because somebody had sat with him and said, right, what's important to Tom, right? His dad, philanthropy, blah, blah. And I said, well, my dad's not very well, Mr. President. He said, right, well, do you think he'll make it? And if he doesn't, why don't we jump in the car and I'll go to him? It's like, wow. So that was an amazing education, David. It certainly was. But I mean, people like Barack Obama, when he came, you know, it was amazing as well.
That's one thing I've truly recognised, and I think I read it in a gentleman called Dale Carnegie's book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the greatest lesson I learned was that all humans cohesively possess the desire to feel important. And Tom, when you came on the podcast before we hit record, you asked where I was, asked about my story, asked about why the podcast exists, and I was blushing like it was a girl flirting with me. I felt so important.
Well, I don't do that for any other reason that I am genuinely interested.
I know.